Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on NET Set Go, organized by Rotaract Club of Laketown Conquerors. I thank Ankita Mitra and Sritama Basu for the very kind invitation to this webinar. I would like to inform all the participants that I will be recording this Google Meet for my YouTube channel because currently I'm running very low on content. So I will be using this as a method to produce content as and how it's possible for me. Right. So how do we go about this? There are many ways. I generally give an overall introduction about what the exam is, how we go about it. But then, as Sritama has very kindly mentioned, I have a YouTube channel where you will find two very detailed videos about both paper 1 and paper 2. I will be repeating some of that today. So if in case you miss out on something which I say right now, you can easily find that out later on in my YouTube channel in one or other of my YouTube videos. For those of you who don't know what my channel's name is, you can search by my name on YouTube and you will easily get it. And also, after the session is over, I will be welcoming your questions with an wide and open arms. Or we can also do something a little different, which is that I'm sure you have come here with questions like what happens after NET? What is the difference between NET and SET and SLET? Why do we give an exam like GATE? After qualifying NET, do we automatically get a job? There are many questions which people often ask, which I generally don't get the opportunity of addressing in my channel or in my classes because they have a pretty sorted approach to whatever is going on. So we can either do an introduction of the exams, which I'm sure most of you already know, or we can do a question answer session right from the beginning till the very end, which I think, in my opinion, would be a better idea because a question answer session would actually solve the doubts which you have. But I guess nobody will be, interested to ask a question right at the onset. So, with that probably erroneous assumption, I will go ahead with a small introduction of the exam for about 10 minutes and then ask you if you have questions. And then if you don't, I will go on again and then again until and unless our time runs out. So what is NET exam? It stands for National Eligibility Test, organized by the UGC and conducted by the National Testing Agency. I can go into the differences about what it means to organize a test and what it means to conduct a test, but then to be very honest, we don't need to know those differences. All we need to know is that we need to crack this exam in order to be eligible to teach in colleges and universities or in any institute of higher education except teacher training colleges. So this is an biannual exam. Ideally, that is, it should be held twice a year. Since 2016, this has been a biannual exam, before which it was an annual exam. Previously, it was conducted by CBSE, Central Board of Secondary Education, after which it was taken over by the NTA. Previously, it was a subjective plus objective exam. Two papers were objective and one paper was subjective. First two papers were objective and the last paper was your subjective paper where you had to write long answers. Following that, in the year 2012, the exam was completely shifted to an objective mode of MCQs. Originally, these MCQs were supposed to be answered on an OMR sheet, which happened till June 2018. I think I am the only one here who has given an OMR based NET exam. I don't think anyone else here has given an OMR based NET exam. If you have, then you are as old as me, in which case I feel sad for you. And most of you have given the NET exam, if at all, in the CBT, that is the computer based test exam, where you are given a computer and then you are supposed to do the question answers on a computer screen by clicking on the correct option in an MCQ format. Right. So this is the generic format of the NET exam. Now since 2000 and I'm guessing 17 or 18, I don't remember the exact year, which is something you will learn about me if you join my classes later, or if you know me, which some of you here do, that I am not very good at remembering anything at all. So you might be wondering, how did I get net so many times? It's primarily about strategy and not about remembering stuff, which I will talk about in a bit. Um, Also available in detail on my YouTube channel. Um, the thing is that this exam is not something that I am fond of. Um, and ideally, if you are a student of English literature, which I'm guessing everyone here isn't, um, then you also should not be fond of this examination, because it doesn't really test your merit as a literature student. It just tests your merit as someone who can mug up a lot of stuff. So it's not a very good exam, but we don't have any other options as it is. So what will we do is we will try and understand why and how we can work our way around the exam so as to pass it, because we need to pass it in order to pursue a career in higher education. So now at the present moment, the NET exam is divided into two papers, paper 1 and paper 2. Now at this point I need to make a clarification, which is that when I will be talking about NET exam, everything that I say for the NET exam is also equally applicable for the SET exam, that is the WBSET or any other SET exam. SET exam, the state eligibility test, is also alternatively known as the state level eligibility test or SLET. Some states call it the SET, some state call it the SLET exam. It's basically the same thing. It's a state level eligibility exam which allows you to apply for colleges and universities in that state. Although we have 29 states, there are not 29 SLETs. I told last day at Sri Shikshadan College when I went to give basically the same lecture there, that we have around 20 to 21 sets being organized in India, and there are several sets which have jurisdiction over one or more states, like Maharashtra set has jurisdiction over Goa, West Bengal set has jurisdiction over Andaman and Nicobar, and so on and so forth. There is a long list of this. You will easily get it on UGC website. And again, these things don't really matter. Whichever state you stay in, 99% of you either stay in or are going to stay in West Bengal at this point, or are wanting to pursue a job in West Bengal or in and around West Bengal for the near future, if not for the entirety of your future. So for most of you, WBSET is perfectly fine, and if you want to go to a different state, then you have to find out which SET exam applies to that state. But you don't have to worry about all of this. If you just clear NET, then you can apply anywhere in India. So as I told you, it's divided, the both NET and SET exams are divided into two papers. First paper is the compulsory common paper for everyone with 10 chapters, and the second paper is the subject paper, which will be different for everyone depending on which subject you have. Now I'm guessing, since most of you, if not all of you, already know me, so a large section of today's audience will be comprised of people who are taking up English as their subject paper, code 30. But even if you are not taking up English as your subject paper, nothing to worry about. The tricks and trades that I will be teaching you in today's webinar will be applicable for more or less all subjects. But of course, since I have experience of giving NET in only one subject, my experience will be a slightly more tilted towards that as compared to the other subjects, which is something I'm guessing you will forgive me for in the longer run of things. So this is more or less a small brief about the exam. I will take questions now, if you have any, or I can go on. Okay, I cannot see any questions, which is not something I am very, okay, I can, yes, the organizers are telling me that you can unmute yourself or write it in the chat box. Anonna, you have a question? I don't know how that is possible, but please ask. Anonna is asking, what should we do after clearing NET? Well, the first step after clearing NET, which is the compulsory step, which if you don't do, they don't give you a job actually, is that you should put up a Facebook status declaring that you have cleared NET. Now, the thing is that while it looks funny on the outside, or it looks all fun and frolic, the fact of the matter remains that this actually is a very important step. Why? Because every year 1019 people or 1049 people, I don't exactly remember the number, it's something around 1000 people passed net in the UR category. So a total of, I'm guessing, 1500 people passed the net in all categories combined. So do you think the recruiters know all 1500 of them? I can assure you they don't. And the fact that you have cleared net is not even going to make a headline if you don't make a headline out of it. Now, why do I say that? Well, the primary reason is that you might think that my recruiters are not going to use Facebook. Well, they might not, but your future potential colleagues at your future potential workplace will use Facebook. And definitely your recruiters will use LinkedIn. So, the first thing you should do after clearing net, which is something I've told all my students and I will continue telling my students in the near and far future, is that you should make a big deal out of it. Because it is a big deal. And you should ensure that every single person who could possibly know knows it. Why is that an advantage? Because when you're going to apply for a job, you're going to submit your net certificate anyway. So what does it matter that someone, say for example, a professor at X and Y university knows that you have cleared net? What advantage does that present you? Well, for instance, in many private institutes, there is often the opportunity of taking someone on the spot or hiring a guest lecturer in a 24-hour basis or an assistant professor on a 24-hour basis. By 24-hour basis, I don't mean they will be on call 24/7. I mean for within 24 hours, they often hire someone. It's a very common practice in private colleges and universities. And in these cases, they only go to those people who they know will be a good fit for the job or who they know will be able to recommend them a good person for the job. Now, either they will be on your Facebook or your LinkedIn and they will know that you are a good fit for the job and they will call you because they know you have cleared net, or they will call someone you know who in turn will say that, oh, my friend or my junior or my classmate or my enemy for that matter has cleared net and you might want to take them into consideration. So if you don't think that telling others about you having cleared net is something optional, let me assure you it's not. You have to ensure that everyone knows, and please, for crying out loud, inform all your teachers starting from your bachelor degree up until your whatever degree you are pursuing at this point. All your teachers should be informed personally via email or via call, depending on the kind of rapport you have with them. What this will do is they will keep this in mind that you have cleared net and they will keep an eye out for opportunities for you if your luck goes well. That is, you are keeping your options open, which is the first thing you should do after net. I can see a question in the chat box. I have a question. Shayoni Banerjee is asking, as we all know that at beginning of our preparation of for NetSet or the other comparative, I think she means competitive exams, we are full of motivation and positivity. But we reach closer, we tend to lose motivation and some sort of negativity comes in our mind that we won't be able to go through this maybe. So how to deal with this? This is a very good question. I will summarize your question. Your question asks that we start off at a high and then our motivation, our determination, our tenacity falls through the months as and how we go about our preparation, because we realize how little we know or how little we are actually prepared for this, right? Can anyone here tell me what Socrates told about his knowledge base? Anyone? Socrates said that he was sure about only one thing, and it had to do with something regarding his own knowledge. Can anyone tell me what that is?
That you know nothing.
Correct. Socrates was only sure of the fact that he knew nothing. And if someone as great as Socrates could think that, then we have every right to think so. And trust me, even the people who are setting your questions, they also know close to nothing. Because the vast pool of knowledge is so huge that you cannot ever reach anything. Einstein himself had said, or Newton, I don't remember, it was either Einstein or Newton, that in the seashore of life's knowledge, he has only managed to pick up pebbles. And if they are picking up pebbles, then God forbid, what are we doing? So, your answer, Shani, is don't start off with high motivation. If you start off with high motivation, you are supposed to fall, which is what has happened with every single batch that I have ever taught. I'm going into my fourth batch this December, and every single time I start with around 25, 28, 30 people. And by the time the batch ends, I'm left with 15 to 18 people. So 10 to 12 people always leave in the middle of the course. Why does this thing happen? This thing happens primarily because of two reasons. One is that they are not finding time to attend the classes. And second is that they are feeling that they are not cut out for it. And there is also the third reason of it becoming a little too expensive for them, which is something I understand. Third reason I often take into consideration. But the first two reasons are not really well thought out reasons. If you think about it really carefully, you will realize it in no time that no one is actually cut out for this test. You have to mold yourself in such a way that you fit the cutout which the test presents to you. Right? So, instead of letting your motivation start from here and then fall like this, I say you start off with zero motivation or very low motivation that no, I cannot do this. What that will do is every day you will prepare, and every day you will know a little more than you did the last day. So automatically your motivation will build. Right? It's like saying, if you start off, I don't know if this analogy will make sense to all of you. It's like saying that I'm starting off with a lot of potential energy but zero kinetic energy. So automatically when time passes, my potential energy will get converted to kinetic energy, and then I will be left with no potential energy. So instead of that, I say you start with no potential energy, only kinetic energy. And when you start off with only kinetic energy and you go up, your potential energy will continuously build over time. Right? It's a concept from, I'm guessing, physics. Not very sure which subject this falls under, but I know this happens for a fact. Um, so I say instead of starting off from high motivation and then letting it fall, I say you start from a low motivation and then build it up, which I think might help you. Okay, Shukonna Bishwash is asking, can you please tell us some of your strategies? I will. Just hold on for a minute. Others? Questions? None? I guess I will come to Shukonna's question then about strategies. See, we are facing a multiple choice question. So according to probability, we already have a 1 out of 4 chance of getting one question right. I'm sure you know how that works, right? We have 4 options, one of them is correct. So if you choose any option at random, it will be number of options chosen by total number of options, which is 1 by 4, 0.25, which is in my opinion very good odds. 1 out of 4 is amazing. And NET, as compared to other competitive exams, doesn't have negative marking. Neither does SET. TET also doesn't have negative marking, in case any of you are interested. So since it doesn't have a negative marking, you have a 1/4 option, sorry, 1/4 chance, 1 out of 4 chances of getting a question right and getting +2 for it. A correct answer gives you +2, and you have 0 chance of getting it negative because there are no negative markings. So even if you get it wrong, worst cases you will get 0. This much I'm sure everyone has understood, right? Best case scenario, you will get 2 points. Worst case scenario is you will get 0. This much I'm guessing everyone has understood. Now imagine the worst case scenario is the same if you attempt a question and get it wrong, and if you don't attempt a question. It's the same. But the best case scenario is not the same if you attempt a question and if you leave out a question. If you leave out a question, your worst case and your best case scenario are the same. You get a 0. But if you attempt a question, your best case scenario is +2, your worst case scenario is 0. And there is nothing in between. Now, what you want to do is, you want to increase your odds of getting the question right. Sorry, getting the answer right. What will you do in order to achieve this? It's pretty simple. Instead of trying to find out what the right answer is, this is something my students are tired of hearing. I'm sure if my classes were held in person, they would throw bricks at me every time I said this, because I say this pretty much every day. But trust me, you cannot hear this enough, which is why I'm going to say it again. Instead of trying to find out what the right answer is, you try to find out what the wrong answer is. Let me explain. Say for example, I ask you, what is this? Who can tell me? That's right behind me.
Curtain.
It's a curtain, right? Can it be called a blind?
Yeah, sure.
Right. So for example, if I ask you a question with what is this behind me, by pointing at this, and your options are curtain, blind, window and chair. So you automatically know it's not a window or a chair, right? Because I've pointed at this. Though both a chair and a window are behind me. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
So what you want to do is, you want to eliminate window and chair out from your options by figuring out that no, these cannot be right. And when we are giving an exam like NET, because of the time crunch and because of the intense and immense amount of pressure we have built upon ourselves, quite unnecessarily may I add, we get so succumbed to that pressure that it comes to us in such a way that we only focus on finding out the right answer. We never try to find out what the wrong answer is, which is a trick which I have often used, and with some success, if I may say so. So what you're trying to do is read the question, read the answer. You will find in every single question, with some exceptions, maybe 5 out of 100, where you will find one or even two options which cannot be correct, then you will eliminate them. Therefore, you will be left with either 3 options or 2, increasing your odd from 0.25 to either 0.33 or 0.5. 0.5 is a great odd. It's like half-half. Either you get it right or you get it wrong. There is no middle ground. There are 2 options. One is right, one is wrong. You choose one, so you have half chance of getting it right. Even if it's 3, it's better than 1 out of 4, right? Now this is about a generic question. There are also some other tricks which I have also explained with match the following, chronology, identifying an author from a passage, knowing what school of thought a particular author belongs to. All these are, prolonged tricks which cannot be taught in half an hour or an hour. If you want a more detailed note on that, I suggest you join my classes. I will put a link somewhere down below. I will not, by down below I mean in the chat box. I'm so used to talking on YouTube. I will put a link in the chat box where you can contact me if you are interested. So what I was saying is that there are many tricks and trades of the matter which you will be acquainted with as and how you go along. But one trick which is applicable for everyone, no matter which exam they are giving, I can tell you this with absolute certainty, is practice, which is something I've talked about in both of my YouTube videos for both paper 1 and paper 2. Practice. You need to practice at least a total of 5,000 MCQs from both papers. Now, since MCQs are divided in a ratio of 1:2 from both papers, that is, in paper 1 we have 50 questions and in paper 2 we have 100 questions. So paper 1 has half 1:2 ratio. I'm sure you understand that. So what you can do is you can divide yourself into something like this. Let's say 2,000 questions for paper 1, 4,000 questions for paper 2, 6,000 questions in total. Right? So, but it's also cool if you do equal number of questions for both paper 1 and paper 2. And may I also suggest to you in this matter that many of you think, quite erroneously I'm afraid, that your subject paper is more important than your first paper because it has more questions. I am sorry to say that it cannot be farther from the truth, no matter which subject you are pursuing, even unless you are pursuing a subject which is completely objective, like something from the sciences, right? If you have a subject like mathematics, chemistry, God forbid me, or whatever other subjects are there, these subjects are generally conducted by CSIR, not UGC. It's a whole different thing. Same exam, just conducted by CSIR and not UGC. Sorry, organized by CSIR, not organized by UGC, conducted by the same old NTA. So if your subject is something to do with science, where your entire subject paper is objective, by objective I mean there is a sure shot answer to every question, in that case your subject paper may be easier than your first paper. But in case your second paper I'm constantly saying subjective when I mean objective, I'm very sorry. When your second paper is totally objective, that is, there is a sure shot answer for your second paper, only then you say that your second paper is easier than your first. I am coming to your question, Shani. But if your second paper is subjective, like English, linguistics, comparative, film studies, journalism, mass comm, Bengali, history, sociology, anything under the broad spectrum of humanities and social sciences, all the subjects are subjective. In that case, I'm sorry to say your second paper is not easier than your first paper. Your first paper is definitely easier because it has a syllabus, especially when it comes to English. English literature has no syllabus when it comes to paper 2. If you look up UGC NET's website, I will show you the syllabus. Give me a minute. You will laugh if you see the syllabus. Give me a minute, I will show it to you. Yeah, I guess you can see it now. As you can see, it's from the official website of UGC. Drama, poetry, fiction, non-fictional prose, language, English in India, cultural studies, literary criticism, literary theory, and research methods and materials in English. This is all that there is to our syllabus, right? As you can pretty well guess, this is not a syllabus. Um, it's quite the opposite. It's actually saying that you have to study everything under the sun, right? You can take a screenshot of this if you so wish. I will also share this with you in the group, I guess, or I'll ask some of the organizers to share it for me. So, and paper 1, let me tell you something about paper 1. Paper 1 is much easier as compared to paper 2 because paper 1 has maths. Before you throw bricks at me, paper 1's math is easy, achievable, and doable. So, the 10 questions from math in paper 1 you can get, 5 questions from comprehension you can get, 5 questions from logical reasoning also you can get. So 20 questions out of 50 you have already scored, and then you need to score 20 more. What you will do? You will skip out the last 2 chapters, people and environment and higher education, and read the remaining 4, which is communication, ICT, teaching method and aptitude, and research method. So you will read 8 chapters, leave out the last 2 because they only require you to mug up a lot, which is not something I'm a fan of, as I've already told you. You will read the 8 chapters, prepare your strategies well with me or alone, whatever you prefer. So that way your first paper's preparation can be enhanced. Right. Okay, I'll come to your questions now. Shayoni is asking what portion of approximate time on daily basis should be given for the preparation of NetSet, how to break the boredom sometimes while preparing. Ananya, I'll come to your question in a bit. First, let me answer Shayoni's question. What amount of time? Anything between 15 minutes to 2 hours. But my suggestion to you is whatever amount of time you're giving, you have to give it every day. And by every day, I mean every day, even if it's your own wedding. You have to give that time every day, which is why I suggest don't set your bar at 2 hours. I don't think you will be able to achieve that every day. I know this sounds demoralizing, but I am speaking from some experience myself and at least 50 students in the last 3 batches. No one has been able to study 2 hours a day for 6 months at a stretch for NET or for anything for that matter. Nobody can do that. So I suggest you start with a small target, 15 minutes. I think that's achievable, right? 15 minutes. But 15 minutes with 2 conditions. First condition is that your phone should be away from you. And second condition is that your internet should be switched off unless you are requiring it. And even if your internet is switched on, it should be on a computer if you have one. If you are not having a computer, I suggest you take some hard copy books or hard copy notes and then read them. You are not to read for 15 minutes on your phone under any circumstance. If you have a smartphone, it is 99.9% probable that you can afford a printout. So print it out, read it. If you have a computer, nothing like it. Switch on the airplane mode on your laptop or switch off your Wi-Fi. Download something, switch off your Wi-Fi, read. 2 conditions. First, your phone should be away from you. Your phone should not be even near you in a flight mode. First condition. Second condition, your internet should be switched off on your computer if you have one, and if you don't have a computer, you can read from a hard copy book. Why? Because distractions are plentiful. So that the only way you can ensure 15 minutes of solid studying, and trust me, 15 minutes if you study for 6 months at a stretch, you will crack NET in 2 attempts. I can assure you of that. If you study for just 15 minutes, but for 180 days in two batches. That is 100 plus 180 plus 180. That is for 1 year. But if you study for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you can do it in one attempt. But then 45 minutes without a phone is probably impossible for most of you. Probably impossible for me as well, back when I was, addicted to this thing. But I have learned something the hard way, which is that you cannot work well with your phone until and unless you're very, very good at multitasking, which is not something I will recommend to you. So, that is it about your question. And when you are feeling bored, I suggest you cope with it by not thinking about your boredom for 15 to 30 minutes and then just studying because you have to study. It's like eating. Remember when we were in our school days, our teacher used to tell us when we used to forget to bring our homework, did you forget to eat? Which is something we now can answer in the affirmative. Most of us often have skipped a meal or two. Um, so, just like eating, which is essential to your body's functioning, I suggest reading should be made as essential to your daily routine as is eating. So, yeah. Anona, you had a question. I can see a significant amount of people there, and I am 100% sure that all of you have one question at least. So, I strongly urge you to bring the questions forward, because later on, don't tell me that someone did not tell you. Uh, okay, Anona is asking, is set mandatory? No. Under no circumstance can anyone ask for set if you have already cleared net. You can as good as skip it. If you have cleared net, you don't need to sit for set anymore. The next net exam will probably be held in June 2023. The form for which will probably be given around February, I'm guessing, which will again be a joined or a merged cycle for December 2022 and June 2023. Because UGC and NTA, in collaboration with our beautiful, beautiful central government, is planning to conduct net only once a year, which is a ploy which we can all see through, or at least some of us, which is not a good thing. The primary reason why this is happening is because of the paucity of jobs, or the paucity of permanent jobs, which exists only on pen and paper, because there are a lot of vacancies in West Bengal, Delhi, Maharashtra, Punjab, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Karnataka, Andhra, everywhere in India. I think at the present moment there's close to about 1,000 open vacancies for English in India, for the at the opening level of assistant professor for just someone with MA and NET. 1,000 will be minimum, I'm guessing, vacancies all across India for anyone who has MA and NET, with 55%, of course. The thing is that they are not recruiting, which is the core problem which we are facing at this present moment. We will maybe not come to that today because it's a sad thing. Okay, someone has asked a question. Shukarna has asked, approx how many answers we need to answer right to crack net. First of all, you are going to attempt all 150 questions. Attempting all 150 questions is the first step that I teach, which is something some of you are not very confident about, because you think, what if I get it wrong? Well, you will get it wrong, so what? It's not a big deal. I'm coming to your question, Shayoni. Let me answer you. Shukonna's first. I would say, if you are from the UR category, that is unreserved, I would say you need to get an average of 65% in 300, which is around 195. 195 is not possible. 196. I would say something more than 190 should be good enough. 186, 188, 190, 192, 194. These are scores which will probably get you a net, and anything above 200 should be good enough for a JRF if you are a UR category student. So that means 200 questions means you have to get a total of 100 questions right from both papers. So I am guessing 33 questions in first paper and 66 questions in second paper. So yeah, it's more or less about scoring 66% in both papers. Shan is asking, is JRF necessary for PhD or cracking NET only shall be enough? If NET is enough without JRF, so how to then start PhD after it? I mean the procedures. Can PhD and working as an assistant professor and guest lecturer go hand in hand? That's not one question, that is too many questions. One by one, Deeptasri, I'm coming to you, just give me a moment. JRF is not necessary for cracking a PhD. The process of getting into a PhD is the same if you have a NET or a JRF. If once any university takes out an advertisement for its PhD admissions, you go to their portal, you apply, and then you wait for the written test or the interview. After the written test or the interview is conducted, they publish a list of candidates who have successfully qualified, and then if you have qualified, then good for you. You go to their university administration office, you submit your documents, they give you a registration certificate, and then you start your PhD. And yes, working as an assistant professor or a lecturer and a PhD can go hand in hand. In fact, it is what is recommended by the UGC. If you are an assistant professor, then you can do a part-time PhD or a distant PhD, or if you are doing it in the same state, then you can do a full-time PhD and a full-time job simultaneously. It's something which the UGC strongly recommends so that you can get both work experience and a degree simultaneously. Okay, Bidisha is asking, Aritra, will it be helpful if we solve mock tests every day? Because a lot of us who have appeared before have an idea about the syllabus. What will you suggest? Because to be honest, there's a bit of demotivation at the back of the mind as well. What will your suggestion be to restore the enthusiasm? No, every day solving a mock test is probably not a good idea, Bidisha, because you won't find so many mock tests. Because if you solve one every day, you will soon find that you are running out of mock tests to solve. So if you solve one mock test for every day, in 100 days you will solve 100 mock tests. And now my question is, where will you get 100 mock tests, right? My suggestion is you can solve one every week, which is what I did. So yeah, that is what my answer to your question is. Diptosri, you had a question.
Yes. Could you choose which university to do PhD from? Like, do we even have that right to choose? And
I didn't
the
understand your
topics
question.
we would choose, are all topics available in all the universities, or there is a hindrance?
I did not understand your first question.
Could we choose which university to do PhD from? Like, does it depend on us, or they just determine which universities to do PhD from? The UGC commission.
No, of course it's dependent on you.
Okay.
You will get to do a PhD in whichever university you get through. It's not like the UGC will tell you that you have to do your PhD from this university.
Okay, so basically there is no compulsion.
No, there is no compulsion. You can do it from any UGC recognized university. And your second question was, can you repeat it once, please?
Are all the topics we choose to do PhD on
Okay, that is a
available
good
in
question. I
every
got it.
university?
No, all topics are not available in all universities. How do you figure that out? Three ways of figuring it out. First is prospectus. When there is a university advertisement for a PhD, they generally publish a prospectus with it, which generally has a list of preferred areas. First. Second, it is there on the website, like Kollan University has on its website a list of preferred areas where they would like to take PhD scholars. Third is you take a look at the profiles of the faculty members who teach at that university and see what areas they teach or what are their areas of preference, and then you make a compiled list of the same, and then you know what areas they are teaching. But the prospectus one is the one which is more or less well accepted across the country.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, Zishan Ali has a question. After completion of UG and PG, almost no guide teacher want to treat me us as a beginner for NetSet. I mean, but there are so many topics, those I know very little or don't. How to handle this situation? I suggest Zishan that you take a shot at joining my classes, because in my classes I treat everyone as a beginner, because all of us are beginning, right? As people who are preparing for the test, we are beginners. So that is what I would suggest to you and to the others who are, wanting to have some extra preparation or tutelage for the NET exam.
Okay, then if we don't have any questions, then I would go on and request the Vice President of Rotaract Club of Laketown Conquerors, Rotaractor Joita Bhumi, to kindly terminate today's webinar with a vote of thanks.
Yes, sure. Good evening. Before I start my vote of thanks, I would request all of you to switch on the camera only if that is possible for a picture. And I would request Rotaractor Shrikama Basu to take pictures. So can we do that?
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank all the participants of different clubs for joining this webinar and making it a successful event. I would like to thank my fellow members of my club, Rotaract Club of Laketown Conquerors, for organizing this very fruitful and prime event. Lastly, I would thank the most important personality here, Mr. Aritra Biswas, an assistant professor of Center for Distance and Online Education, Rabindra Bharati University, for guiding us thoroughly on how to approach and clear NET and SET in the best way possible. Sir, thank you for showing us the path for the aspiring professors for teaching in colleges through this very interactive discussion session. We hope we can get back to you, sir, at any point of our journey if we face difficulties, and you will be definitely there to back us up. Till then, let's get going. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.